Hi everyone, so we're going to be doing a quick propagation video on Gazania, ringens, var, leucolaena. I'm not too good with Latin if you couldn't tell. So this is a creeping Gazania. It's native to South Africa, has no nice yellow daisy flowers. It creeps about, it's evergreen to zone 8 at least as far as I know. And the parent plant in my yard for some reason has been looking really sad and droopy. I'm not sure if it's a fungal element or is it the heat, but I'm taking the precaution and I'm taking cuttings, and hopefully the cuttings come out clean, like they don't have any disease, and I could reestablish the plant should the mother die. I'm not going to be planting it in the same space as the mother plant is right now should it die, for two reasons. I don't like where it's at anymore, and secondly, if it is a disease problem, it could be soil borne. So if I plant my cutting in there and it's a soil borne disease, that plant is going to not have a really happy life. It's going to get sick again and it's going to die. So this species is actually really easy to propagate. What you want to do is have some good secateurs, some good cutters. Boom. And cut beneath a leaf node. And I show you guys right now what a leaf node is. So we have removed some of the leaves that are more towards the bottom for two reasons. Some of the stem will be buried under the soil and those leaves are just going to rot, and that rot will spread into the stem and eventually kill the plant. And secondly, if you remove them, you're damaging the stem, revealing the leaf node. So let's go over that really quick. The leaf node right here, if you can see, is where the leaf meets the stem. By removing those leaves, you're also creating again a wound that will be an area that roots could start to develop if it's treated properly. The other reason is that you're removing transpiration exposure. So leaves breathe, and every time they breathe, just like animals, they release moisture through their mouth. This cutting is a cutting, it doesn't have roots. So it struggles a lot more to carry that moisture up from the soil into the plant itself. So we're doing emergency surgery, so you want to do all the precautions. For example, I'm going to remove some of the leaf mass, leave just enough so it can still photosynthesize. Still needs to metabolize, produce some sugars, otherwise again you're going to end up with a dead plant. Once you get that out of the way, you could use rooting hormone. You don't need to use rooting hormone. I do, because where I used to work, we used it all the time. They recommend that you use gloves when you're using rooting hormones, because some of them could cause cancers, because they're a biological accelerant, pretty much. I'm lazy. So do as I say, don't do as I do. And what you're going to do is you're going to dip your cutting in there, and you're going to try to get as much as those leaf nodes exposed to the rooting hormone. At that point, you're going to bury the stem into your seed compost. I like to use, in terms of soil for cuttings, seed compost. It's airy, it doesn't have high nutrients. It's good stuff. If you use normal potting soil, you're more likely to rot your plants, and you don't want to do that. So again, we repeat the same thing. And if you notice, I'm putting the cuttings at the edge of the pot. The reason for that is because it allows the cutting to have just that little extra aeration. So instead of being surrounded completely by a massive cold, it could be cold, by being surrounded by wet soil, you're less likely for your cutting to rot off. So whenever you're doing cuttings, the two major things that you're fighting against is drying out and desiccating and rotting. Okay, you repeat the same thing, and you want to be delicate with the plant. So if you can, or if the plant is a more delicate, fragile type of cutting, get a pencil and stick a hole, make the hole using the pencil and just slip it in, compact it, so that you don't end up damaging the stem too much. Okay, Cut right there. Now, when selecting for cutting material from a mother plant, you want to select material that is healthy. It isn't too soft. And what I mean by it being soft, I mean that the growth isn't too new. Growth that's too new is less likely to actually root because it's new. The actual leaves and stems are pretty thin. They're going to lose moisture more quickly. And then again, the battle between it desiccating, drying out, or rotting is more hard to fight. So pick medium age growth. Don't pick old growth. It might root for you, but again, it's old. And even though you're technically making a new plant, that plant is the age of the material that you took it from. And depending on what type of plant you're doing, it might not be a best performer when it's older. So medium, middle age, sorry, not medium. Growth is the best. Now, in terms of size of cutting, that varies a lot. It depends again on what you're trying to cut. On these types of plant, like the Galarza, I like to do like 4 or 5 inch, so it has a pretty good length of stem to root from. There's some plants that you could actually root them from a single leaf. I'm hoping to actually get my hands on some of those types of plants that are hardy outside. One of those plants could, for example, would be, what's it called? Ooh, I can't remember. Pineapple lily. It's a bulb, and you could cut the leaf subway, like subway style, or into sections on the like, can't remember how I want to say horizontals, and put them into, again, seed compost, and it will actually start to make baby bulbs, baby plants that are completely identical to the parent. So that brings us to the next topic. Why do cuttings when I could just grow it from seed? It's really important to do cuttings when you're doing stuff that is, let's say, named. It's a cultivar, it's a variety or a hybrid, because if you try growing that from seed, it will not come true to the named variety. That's because seed is sexual reproduction. So just like when a mommy and a daddy decide to have a fun time, the child oftentimes comes out displaying characteristics of both, or even entirely new characteristics. And then you can't say that it's an exact copy of mommy or daddy. So doing cuttings ensures that the grower or the gardener gets the exact same plant over and over and over again. So for like this one, it's a species variety. I'm pretty sure I could probably find seed out there of it. But my own plant doesn't have seed. I don't want to buy seed, and I think cuttings is easier. Like for example, here's a flower head of the plant, and it looks like it already dropped its seed. Now growing Galarza or Gazanias, I'm not too sure how you pronounce that. From seed, it's super easy, and there's a ton of different types that you could actually grow from seed that come in all these different colors. It's a really diverse genus. I think they're great for the desert southwest. Yes, they're non-native, but I have seen our native pollinators and honeybees visit them. This one's a little bit more shy blooming than some of the like annual type, which we will have a video about them later on. And it tends to bloom when either the days are lengthening or the night is shortening. So like spring and summer. A lot of African plants have that tendency, especially if they're in the daisy family, Asteraceae. Okay, so this is our last one. Okay, going right on the edge, push it down, firm in the compost around it to make sure that there's no air pockets around our cuttings. In fact, I think I'm going to add a little bit because the soil got a little bit too low for my liking, and I re-moisten it. One thing that I failed to mention was that before you do your cuttings, I recommend you moisten the soil. Moisten it so it's completely wet through and through, not just the top layer. And the reason for that is because, first off, the plants are going into something that's moist. It's to their liking. It won't go into shock, hopefully. And secondly, if you use dry compost and then you wet it and you were using rooting hormone, you're probably removing a bunch of that rooting hormone. And you want as much as that to stay. So we'll be revisiting these plants, hopefully pretty soon, and see how many of them make it. If I'm only going to be keeping one of these plants, the rest I'll probably be giving away or selling. And the one I'm going to be keeping, I'm actually going to be planting it in the front yard in a big project that myself and my parents are planning on doing probably this winter. So we're already trying to get material for that project. So thank you for watching. Like and subscribe, comment, let's talk. See you next time.